Okay, so I hope everyone is back. I will start rocks and minerals now. Okay, format. So rocks and minerals is an event. It's in both Division B and Division C, and teams use their knowledge of rocks and minerals to identify pictures or specimens and complete a written test. So usually there are around 8 or 10 stations, and each station will have pictures or samples of rocks or minerals. So I think for online years, there will be pictures in like a Google Drive, but in person it's usually samples. And then the questions will ask you to identify what each of these rocks are and answer questions about their hardness, strength, chemical composition, and other properties. There's usually around 8 or 10 rocks per station and like a few questions per rocks. So a good strategy is to have one person start from the front and the other from the back. But it doesn't really matter which order you do the station in, because like as long as you do one station at a time and like complete them one at a time, then it's fine, because they don't have any relation to each other. And in this event, you're allowed to have a binder, so it's important to have really good binder organization. Sorry. Okay, so here are the event rules. So once again, you have 15 minutes to do this test. There are usually around 40 to 60 questions, but it depends on the test. You can have 2 people, and you're actually allowed to have a binder, but it has to be 2 inches or smaller and 3 ringed. So you're actually allowed to have sheet protectors, lamination, tabs, and labels. So like an actual full functioning binder. However, you're not allowed to have calculators, and they probably won't help you anyways. And for 2022, a copy of the rocks and minerals list and a magnifying glass were allowed, but I'm not sure if this applies to future years or like other years. Okay, so here are some important terms. So there's 3 types of rocks, or like 3 main types of rocks. Igneous rocks are formed through the cooling of magma or lava. Magma is molten rock trapped underground, and lava is molten rock on the surface of the earth. So intrusive or plutonic rocks are formed when cooled magma, like it cools beneath the surface, and extrusive or volcanic rocks are made when lava cools above the surface. So they're both made from molten rock cooling. Sedimentary rocks are formed by accumulation of sediment particles. So there's 2 types. The first is clastic, which is composed of rock fragments. So basically rocks are made from the fragments of other rocks. And then organic rocks, which is when the rock is composed of shells of organisms, roots, and other organic debris, hence the name why it's called organic rock. Metamorphic rocks, they're basically like squished versions of other rocks, and they form when igneous or sedimentary rocks are put under high heat and or high pressure. Metamorphism turns rocks into denser rocks, and it kind of changes the mineral composition, so it will look a little bit different. So to the right, I have a picture of the rock cycle. It is likely that you have heard of it before. So like it's a cycle, so you can start anywhere. But like, for example, you start at the magma, it cools into an igneous rock, and then it's weathered and eroded. It's weathered and eroded, turns into sediments, or like little pieces of rock. It's compacted and cemented, and which is called lithification, into a sedimentary rock, which is then heated and turns into a metamorphic rock. And then it's melted and the cycle starts all over again. And you can basically follow the arrows, like they point to where each step can go. Okay, so here are some more important terms. So color is the possible colors of the rock, like the colors that you see the rock in. Streak is the color of the mineral or rock in powdered form. It's done by scratching it on a rough surface, such as a porcelain tile. So you basically take a rock and you scratch it on a rough surface to see what color, the rock is when it's like powdered. hardness is the measure of resistance to being scratched. So basically there's this thing called Mohs hardness scale. It's like it's a relative scale from 1 to 10, where the softest is talc and the hardest is diamond. So basically you'll plot each rock onto the scale, and it compares the hardness of each rock to the hardness of other rocks. And then using the scale, you can find which rock is harder than which other rocks. Harder rocks will scratch softer rocks. Group is based on chemical makeup. So sulfates, oxides, phosphates, and silicates, they kind of describe which elements make up the rock mostly. Specific gravity, it's another property of rocks. It's basically the ratio of the mass of the rock to the mineral to the mass of the same volume amount of water. So it's basically how dense the rock is compared to water, if that makes sense. And then formula, it's the chemical formula of the rock or mineral. So it's basically, it's a list of the elements that are mineral. Yeah.
How soft is talc? Is it like chalk?
Sort of, yeah. And the entire scale is relative, so yeah, okay. So formula is the chemical composition of the mineral, basically says which elements are inside the rock or mineral and how much of each element. Okay, so luster is how shiny or metallic the rock is, and crystal structure is the pattern that the atoms in the mineral are arranged in. So on the right, I have this little chart of these different kinds of crystal structure. So the first type is simple cubic. It's basically just a cube. Rhombohedral is like a cube but slanted. Tetragonal is just like a rectangular prism. Monoclinic is the slanted rectangular prism. Orthorhombic, it's kind of like a prism, except each edge is a different length. So the length is a different sorry. Okay, never mind. So triclinic is like the slanted version of this, and then hexagonal is just a hexagon but 3D. And also cleavage is the tendency of a mineral to break along surfaces. So basically, some minerals, if you try to break them, they'll just break randomly into a weird crack. But some of them, if you break them, they'll crack along a specific line or specific pattern. So that's basically the cleavage. So here are some strategies for identifying. So usually they'll just give you a list of random pictures and ask you to identify the rock or mineral. So a good strategy is to scroll through all the problems and answer the most obvious looking rocks first. Maybe they have a distinct color or shape. And for the rest of the rocks, look through the binder and try to first match the color, which will help you narrow it down a lot. So try to find one with a similar color or a variation of a color. And sometimes they will ask you questions about properties of the rock or mineral that you identify. But because you don't have to identify the rock before you answer these questions, you can kind of look through them to see if it has any hints. So for example, this is from an actual test. So it gives you 6 rocks. It asks you to identify all of them. But for example, say you don't know what specimen D is. You'll scroll through and you find this question that says specimen G can scratch specimen D, which can in turn scratch specimen E. What can we determine about the hardness of specimen G on the Mohs hardness scale? So through this question, because G can scratch D, that means G is harder than D and D is harder than E. So if you found out what G and E are, then you can look through your binder and find out the hardness of those 2 rocks. And then you know that the hardness of D is in between the hardness of G and the hardness of E. So you can kind of narrow it down and go from there. Okay, yeah, and also you get a binder, right? But it's gonna take you a long time to finish the test if you have to scroll through the binder for like everything. So I would suggest you memorize most things, like the rock cycle and types of rocks. And in binder, just put like a list of rock. So like if you were to create like a digital binder and then print it out, I'd say like put the name of the rock, put a picture of the rock, put like the chemical composition, formula, cleavage, luster, and things like that. So that so that it can help you find the rock. Yeah. Okay, so here are some helpful links. So the first one is also the SciLi website one. It basically gives you like an overview of the entire event. And there's the ASO Inc. ones for both Division B and Division C. And then this other one that I just found online is called rocks.comparenature.com. It's like a random site, but basically it has like a database of every single rock. Like for example, if I were to search up sandstone from just like the link here, it would give me like the definition, texture, uses, types, and then all of these things. This site would be pretty helpful while you're building your binder to like get quick information. And yeah. Okay, on the right here, I have the 2022 rocks and minerals list. This was from like last year, so it might be a bit outdated since they changed, like they might change a little bit each year. But I think it's a good starting point because you get like a rough idea of how many rocks or which rocks you should start with. Okay, and here I have like a poster or like a screenshot of a poster of many types of rocks. So this one is color coded. The yellow is igneous rocks, the blue is sedimentary rocks. Then the purple is metamorphic rocks. There's also ores, crystals, minerals, and gemstones, but like you don't really need to know them. So I'll just go through it really quick and like try to explain some of the defining traits of these rocks. You might want to screenshot this because like it'll be helpful during the Kahoot. Okay, so granite is basically just like a normal rock, I guess. It can be almost any color. Shale, it's a sedimentary rock, which means like it has many layers. It's a layered rock. Gold, you probably know that, but it's usually attached to like other rocks. Corundum is a crystal, so like most of these crystals are like shiny, and like they get shinier when polished. Basalt is an igneous rock, but it kind of looks like spotty. And then conglomerate, it has like a lot of cubes attached to it. And then there's slate. In this picture, it's like reddish from like the iron, but it can also be black. Like if you've ever heard of like a slate chalkboard, yeah, it's about that color and like yeah. And there's silver. It's kind of similar to gold, but like different color, I guess. Fluorite, I think it like glows under UV light or something, but it's like a variation of this mineral is used in toothpaste for like hypersensitivity. Obsidian, you've probably heard of it before, but it's like black and shiny, and one of the most like well-known igneous rocks. Sandstone, it looks like sand. Marble, it's usually a mix of two colors. I think mostly I've seen it in black and white, but this one is pink and green. Hematite it's like kind of magnetic. Halite, it looks like an ice cube-ish. And it's clear. Pumice is you probably also heard of it, but it's like really light because it has a lot of holes in it, like a sponge.
Doesn't pumice like float on water or something?
Yeah, because it's like really porous, so it's not dense and it floats. Yeah. And then limestone, it's commonly used in buildings because it's really sturdy and also easy to find. Then there's schist. Yeah, that's how it's pronounced. But it's like a greenish rock. Copper ore, it's usually like a copper shade, like in pennies, but it turns green from oxidation. Sulfur is yellow and it does not smell good. Olivine is like from the name you can tell it's olive colored, or sort of. Coal, it's flammable, and like, yeah. Gneiss, it's like, yeah, it's like pinkish. Bauxite, it sort of looks like pumice, but like more red, and I don't think it floats. It's like a lot more dense. Diamond is like the hardest rock. Cyanite, it's like bluish, but like white spots. Serpentine, it's probably also the color. And then quartzite, which is not the same as quartz. It's like a more raw form of quartz, or like the quartz mineral. Mercury, it's red because of like, it's red, yeah. Opal is shiny and multicolored. Diorite, it's also called the Dalmatian stone because it's white with black spots. Lignite, it's kind of just like a black blob. Okay, and I'll just go through the rest really quickly. There's phyllite, which is like greenish. Uranite, like, I'm not sure how they got these names. Emerald is like greenish. Graphite is the thing you write with in a pencil, would like that you commonly call lead. Talc is the softest rock, and then ruby is like pinkish or red, and topaz is also another gemstone. So here's like a mini, like slightly less detailed version of the rock cycle. Like you have a volcano here that erupts and cools and gets weathered and eroded and cement turns into sedimentary rock, or gets melted back into the volcano. And here's the chart from earlier. Okay, so here are some example questions. This was also from 2022. So here this one, it kind of shows you the grading scale. Like there's full credit, partial credit, skipped, or incorrect. So I think for this test, they gave you a Google Drive link that you click it, and then it shows you a bunch of pictures of the rocks, and you use those pictures to answer these questions. Like it just asks you to identify, like, please identify specimen A, please identify specimen B. It's pretty straightforward, yeah. Okay, and I think now we're going to do a Kahoot. Andrew, could you please share that? Because I don't think I have access to the account. Sorry. Okay, sorry, give me a moment to figure out like the Kahoot thing, sorry. Okay, give me a moment. I have some technical difficulties and I'm trying to figure out how to like make the code, sorry. Okay, I think we can start now. Okay, yeah, so that was quartz. It's pretty obvious, I guess. Identify. Yeah, so yeah, a sponge is not a rock. Um, yeah, and it's pumice because it has a lot of holes in it. Okay, next question. Yeah, so this one is gold.
I don't
It's
see how you get this wrong.
fine. Maybe it was like a misclick or something. Next question. Yeah, this one is opal because it's like multicolored and shiny. Olivine is like a dull and green rock. Next question. Also, by the way, this class might go over time a bit, so if you need to leave, you can. Yeah, so this one's diorite because it's like Dalmatian stone and it has like black spots. Yeah, next question. Identify this rock. Yeah, this one is sulfur. Sulfur is just like a yellow rock. Limestone is actually not lime colored, it's white. Next question. Okay, identify this rock. Yeah, so this one is halite. While this does look like an ice cube, it is not actually called the ice cube stone. Next question. Okay, yeah, so this is bauxite. It's not a sponge. Next question. Yeah, so it's slate. So like in the poster, slate was shown as red, but it can actually be both red and gray. So this was the gray variation. It's not sandstone. Yeah, so this one is slate. I don't know if you can tell from the image, but it's not as shiny as obsidian. So yeah, yeah. So this one is obsidian because it's shiny. Yeah. Yeah, so copper ore and copper would both be correct because copper is technically just an ore. Okay, next question. Double points. Identify. Yeah, so this one is just, it's like a big greenish gray rock. Granite, I guess, looks similar, but yeah. Next question. Yeah, so this one was actually ruby. While it does look like rose quartz, it doesn't have like the same crystal structure or like shape of, like it doesn't have the same shape. And ruby can also be pink. Next question. Yeah, so this one was actually gneiss. I think I may have mentioned that, or I may have forgotten to mention that gneiss was like a striped rock. Limestone is mostly just one solid color. Next question. Oh, specimen G can scratch specimen D, which can in turn scratch specimen E. Out of these specimens, which is the hardest? Yeah, it's specimen G because hard rocks can scratch softer rocks. Yeah, so next question. Using Mohs scale of hardness, which of the following is the hardest?
It's SoTal.
Yeah, so this one is pretty obvious. Diamond is the hardest rock. Next question.
Can you go quicker because
Okay.
that's like 45.
When metamorphic rocks are exposed to high heat, they melt into sedimentary rocks. True or false? No, false. Yeah. Lava and magma cool to form igneous rocks. True or false? Yeah, this one is true. Specimen G can scratch specimen E. Out of these specimens, which is the least hardest? Yeah, specimen E. Which of the following is not one of the three major types of rocks? Sedimentary rocks include yeah, it's clastic and organic rocks. Intrusive and extrusive rocks are for igneous. Next question. Igneous rocks include yeah, intrusive and extrusive rocks. Good job. Lithification includes which of the following? Yeah, it includes compaction and cementation. Kind of just have to memorize that one. 3 points, yay. Read carefully. Yeah. Okay, here's the podium. And third, Aiden Z face. And second, eggs. And then first. Congrats to Jerry Huang. Good job, guys. Okay. I think that's it for today. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.